Hi guys, and welcome back. Oh my gosh, today is beautiful, and I'm hardly even wearing a coat, and it's just gorgeous out here. So I thought this would be a really good time to go over my garden beds. Now we still have a lot of cold weather coming through. In fact, it's supposed to snow on Thursday. So I wanted to come out here and just kind of show you what has been starting to emerge from the ground. And I also want to talk about Brennera Jack Frost. I know I've talked about that in other videos, but I want to talk and give you a little bit more information on the zoning of it and what to expect and the things that may not necessarily be true. So last video, I think is when I was cleaning up my gardens over here, I actually did show you what was coming up, like my daylilies and some of my other plants, like even my Brennera that's re-emerging. So you'll be able to see how much more growth that is. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see what and how much bigger things are getting. So most of this stuff you've already seen from my last garden tour, but I wanted to show you what my President Clematis looks like at this point. Right now, they are starting to get their foliage. I don't know how clear you can see that. Let's see if I can bring that up a little bit. So I'm really excited about that. That's in that side. I do have 2 of them, so there's quite a few starts on that, and I'm really excited about that. This is a time of year that I need to start training it to go up on this jute trellis here. Over here, pretty much things are just emerging a little bit larger than what they were. And last month, I also trimmed my Jupiter's beard over here. And as you can see, it's very healthy. So I didn't create any damage by trimming it. I find that in Zone 8B, Jupiter's beard is pretty hardy. Now, I want to point out a couple things about Jupiter's beard. First off, as you can see, it's got some daylilies around it. It doesn't bother the Jupiter's beard. It doesn't choke it out. So they work really well together. But what I want to point out about Jupiter's beard is that it grows from new growth and not old growth. So that's why you see all these dead stems here, because those are from last year's growth. Now, it's noted that Jupiter's beard / valerian root is invasive. However, I've never known it to be invasive. Does it spread? Yes, it does, but it only spreads because if the wind is blowing and it's got seedlings, it will spread out. And it does have that tendency. However, they're so easy to pull out. So I wouldn't consider it invasive in the sense that it has runners underneath on the root system, that it doesn't create these runners and it grows and becomes invasive underground. It just spreads by seed. So just wanted to point that out. But everything else here, as you can see, all my daylilies are really emerging. And what's really exciting about the daylilies for this year is that I planted a couple of them from my neighbor. And so I'm really curious to find out what those look like, the color that they look like. And yeah. Now, as much as I love daylilies, I think they're beautiful. There's a huge variety of them. The blooms just last a day, and then, you know, that's it. So I'm really trying to migrate my garden into something that has more herbal properties and just has more lasting blooms. So now that I showed you this part, let me move you on to my south garden. So starting from this area on, I have about 4 different Brenneras, and these ones are much older. I've had them here for at least 7+ years. And this one here is the one that I actually trimmed the dead foliage around it on my last video. Now look at how big that is. So It's looking really good. Now, you can divide these. I don't like dividing them because they're slow growing to spread, and I just really like the width of how they are when they're this large. Now, this will fill out this whole area right here. That's how large it'll get. Over on this side, when my husband bought this home, he had a bunch of daylilies here. And they were the same daylilies that are in the very front, and I have no idea of the species, but I ended up kind of replacing a lot of them. The foliage on this have like this hue of blue, and they're just a little bit tougher daylily, and I just absolutely love them because they just fill out this whole entire area here. And they really complement, which you can't see because my bishop dahlia over here is not emerged yet and won't emerge for a while, but it really complements that bishop dahlia. And then over here are two more Brenner's Jack Frost. So now let me talk about these, because these ones here, I didn't remove the foliage. Now, you don't need to remove the dead foliage. However, you can. I typically don't, because what I love about Brenner Jack Frost, and this one here is called a heart-shaped Brenner. It's also called a Siberian buglow. And what I love about Brenners is that they're hardy from zone 3 to 8. So if you live in a very cold area, these are very hardy. And I have never found any issues even when they're in deep ice with them. They're deer resistant, they're rabbit resistant, and what I really like about them is that we get a lot of snails and slugs here in Oregon, and these ones are slug and snail resistant. And the reason for that is because right now their leaves are extremely soft, and in the top part of them they are, but the bottom layer has like little prickly, it almost feels like a emery board in the bottom of them, and so that's why slugs and snails don't like them. So I really, absolutely, it's one of my top choice plants to have. It's non-invasive. However, if you research Brenner Jack Frost, especially the Siberian buglow, state that these are invasive, but I have never ever known for this to be invasive, at least not in zone 8B. I don't know about any other zones, but here they have stayed in a clump like this, and they have never spread out in the several years that I've had them planted in my yard. I almost love them more than hostas, and I love hostas, but hostas are a magnet for slugs and snails, whereas Brenners are not, and they're very easy to take care of. You really basically just leave them alone, and you do give them some shade, and that is the reason why I have planted this ephobia right here, because if you don't give it some shade or shade protection and it gets quite a bit of sun, the sun will fry the edges of this plant, and it also will flop them. So always keep them with some kind of protection from direct sunlight. I have some hostas here. These ones here are just starting to emerge. Do you see that? Yeah. So I've got here, this is a plantain lily. I'm really not sure what the type and variety of it is, because I've had these three. I've got a guacamole, and then I have an Eden over here. But this particular one, I have never been able to identify. But these are giant hostas here. And this is the reason why I tag them, because in the winter you don't see hostas at all. Unless they start emerging, and it would be very easy to dig in the ground and start planting when you don't see anything in the area, and easily dig into these. So by tagging them, it gives me a good indication about where they are. So I have the plantain lily. These are very fragrant, and it usually comes up a little bit later than we are right now, because we're not even out of January yet. But because they are, I'll show you what I use. I use, to protect them from snails and slugs, I use this type of oyster shell. They almost look like crushed eggshells. And I find that this oyster shell really protects my hostas from snails and slugs. And so to prevent them from coming over here and doing that, I will sprinkle this all around it. Snails and slugs do not like traveling over this because they will get cut up. This oyster shells will also put the calcium and a lot of new nutrients into the ground as well. And so it's always a nice thing to have on hand, and it's not really that expensive. So I will put that on that, and I will also put it on this plantain, because this is the other one that comes out and emerges in the springtime. So I will go ahead and add this on here as well. And you can cover the whole plant, and it's probably a better idea to kind of be generous with this. Now you can purchase this oyster shells at any chicken, any place that sells things for poultry, like chicken feed or anything like that. That's where you can locate this stuff at. There was, I think about a couple years ago, there was a big scarce where oysters were not readily available because of something that was happening in the ocean. And I can't pinpoint what that is at this time, but you couldn't locate this type of oyster shells nowhere. The only type of oyster shells you could find were those that were tumbled and made very smooth, but they will not really keep the snails and slugs away. You really have to have them more of a crushed consistency where it gives that real jagged edging, for that to really work. So anyway, yeah, you can find that in the feed stores now. They do have them available. And it's relatively inexpensive too. So a lot cheaper than the stuff that the calcium that they tumble and make really smooth. Don't use that. That stuff there is great for chickens, but it really isn't the greatest for keeping snails and slugs away. They'd be great for putting them and adding it to your compost when you're doing like container gardening or upright gardens, because of the calcium in there, especially if you're growing tomatoes, because it would be a really slow release. But I wouldn't really recommend it for snails and slugs. So you guys, don't forget to get up, get out, and get active, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye for now.